Hi, I'm going to talk about how to use the free Scratch online program to make this cool animated spiral that's mysterious and mesmerizing and hypnotizing. And it's not hard to make. All right, so we're going to start by going to the Scratch website. You can type it into a Google search bar, and the first result is pretty much always right. You can sign up for a free account here. Once you've signed up for an account, click on the Create button, and it'll start you with a blank project. So the first thing you notice is that there's this Scratch Cat character in the middle, and we could do things with Scratch Cat if we go to different sections of code over here. Like if we go to the motion section, you can click move 10 steps, and it'll move 10 steps forward. You can click turn. This is turn 15 degrees in here, but I could change how many degrees it's turning. Do 90 degrees, which is like a total right turn. That's a bigger turn. It can turn all the way around in just 4 clicks of this now. And I can also change the number in the move. I can make it a bigger move, like 20 steps. And another really cool thing that you can do that we're going to use a lot today is in the pen section of the code. You can see there's all these options to change the pen color and change the pen shade, but what is the pen? Well, the pen is something inside the Scratch Cat, inside any of these sprites that you can move around. And when you say pen down, it'll go down onto the screen, like as if it's a pen going down onto a page. And then when it moves, it'll leave a line behind it. So let's try clicking pen down. And now going back to motion and clicking move 10 steps again. So if you do this a couple times, you'll start to notice there is a line being left behind the Scratch Cat. And if we make the Scratch Cat turn different directions, and then we move again that way, you'll see it's leaving that line behind it in whatever direction it's turned. So I'm going to actually shrink the Scratch Cat a little bit so it's a little easier to see. This is a useful tool up here. If you move the mouse up, you see this shrink tool. Kind of looks like arrows pointing inwards. You click on that, then click on the Scratch Cat a few times. It's just making it a little smaller so it's a little easier for us to see our line. Okay, I'm going to take some of the things that we've clicked, and I'm going to bring them from this code library where we can find the code out into the stage where our code can actually live and we can assemble it. So I'm going to get one of those move blocks. Those are useful. I'm going to get one of these turn blocks. And in the pen section, we used pen down. And I'm noticing some other cool things like set pen color, clear. So the other really important thing is in the events section, I want to get a when green flag clicked. That's what's going to start my program off, because we start the program by clicking the green flag. Right now, nothing happens because there's nothing linked up to when green flag clicked. But if I attach move 10 steps and turn, and maybe I put the pen down first, then wherever the Scratch Cat is, when I click the green flag, it's going to do pen down, move 10 steps, turn 15 degrees. Let's try it. So every time I'm clicking the green flag, it's moving forward and turning with the pen down. So it's sort of making a circle. And that's really all a circle is if you think about it. It's going forward a tiny bit, turning a tiny bit, going forward a tiny bit, turning a tiny bit. Now what I want to do today is not a circle though. I want it to make a kind of cool staircase pattern. So after my move 10 steps and my turn right, I'm going to move 10 steps again and turn right again. And do you remember we talked about how many degrees of a turn is a right turn? Like full, like going straight up, now going straight right. It's 90 degrees. There's no reason you should know that already. Just that's what a right turn is, 90 degrees. So we're going to turn right, and then, oh, I put in 2 turn rights, but what I really want is to turn back left 90 degrees, because my big idea is the Scratch Cat is going to go forward 10 steps, turn right 90 degrees, go forward 10 steps, turn left 90 degrees. And then it can keep doing it, and it'll sort of repeat like a staircase. So let's see if that works. I'm going to click the green flag. And do you see every time I click, it's doing another couple stairs of this staircase. It's a little hard to see what the cat is doing. Let's stick in a weight in the control section after each of these moves. And now try. Yeah, and we can even stick a weight in between and after the turns as well. That's going forward, turning right, going forward, turning left. Going forward, turning right, going forward, turning left. Now, as you notice, we have a lot of stuff that we've drawn left behind, and it would be nice to start every time we click the green flag with like a clean slate with the scratch cat in the middle. And it would be nice to not have to click the green flag over and over again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a forever loop out of this control section, and this is just going to repeat the steps inside it forever. So I'm going to put this up around almost everything I have here. I'm going to keep the pen down outside of it because we only need to put the pen down once and then it just stays down. You never have to say it again. So now if I click the green flag, the scratch cat will start to do a staircase and it won't stop. It's just going to keep going. Now, eventually it's going to get to the edge and I'm going to want it to go back to the beginning, back to the middle. So if I go to the motion section and I get a go to block and I put this at the beginning, and change the values in there to 0 and 0. Then when I click the green flag, the scratch cat is going to start back at the beginning and start doing its staircase from there. Now I mentioned before, it's kind of a mess, the stuff we're leaving behind. So let's go to the pen section. That's where we had this clear. And what that's going to do is it's just going to erase all the pen drawings. So we'll start by clearing everything. And then the scratch cat will start to make a staircase in some direction. Now you notice there was one line left in there. So this is our first bug. What mistake did I make in my code that let that line still be there? What change might I need to make? So think about that for a second. A clue is that this go to is happening, and this pen down is happening, and this clear is happening. It seems like the scratch cat is moving while the pen is down, and that's not really what I want. So what we could do, I'm just moving this forever away so I can play with this go to. We can clear, then have it go to, and then put the pen down. That seems like it should fix it, right? So I'm going to click the green flag and we'll try again. Didn't quite fix it. What I need to do is I need to get this pen up. And the first thing I need to do after I clear is lift the pen up, then go to with the pen up in the air. So it's like down on the screen, goes up in the air, moves, then goes back down, instead of being down already and moving and drawing while it's moving. So now if I click the green flag, it should move with no line. Yeah. Now you notice every time I'm doing this, the cat is kind of starting at a different angle. That's because I'm just doing it in the middle of it being turned this way or that on the staircase. But I want it to start in the same position. So let's go to the motion section and get one of these point in direction blocks. So that's the other thing I'm going to do with my go to. It's going to go to the middle and it's going to point to the right. So now every time I click the green flag, it's going to start facing the right and it's going to start making a staircase. So it's sort of making this staircase downwards. Doesn't really matter. If I click the green flag, I just want it to do the same thing as before. Okay, now these staircases are kind of slow. Let's speed things up. So instead of waiting 1 second, let's wait like 0.1 second, 1/10 of a second. I'm going to go in each of these. You don't have to write 0.1, you can just write 0.1. It's the same number. Sometimes the 0 just helps you see that it's not a 1. And now you can see the cat's going faster. If I click the green flag, sort of making this staircase in a fast way. Okay. What if I want more than one staircase though? Well, instead of it just going forever in one direction, why don't we say, let's take the inside of this forever out a little bit. And let's say we want the cat to make 10 steps, 10 of these like sort of 2-step pairs. And do that forever. And after it's done a whole bunch of steps, it should go back, turn, and do a bunch of steps in a new direction. So I'm going to get another one of these go-tos, put in 0 and 0 so that it's going to the middle. 0 for X and 0 for Y just means the middle in Scratch. So after it's done these 10 steps in some direction, then I want it to go to the middle and turn a little bit. Let's just use this turn 15 degrees and see what that does. And then keep going and do 10 new steps in its new direction. So I'm going to put all of this back inside this forever and click the green flag. And let's see. So the Scratch Cat's making about 10 steps. And now it went back. It turned a little bit. Now I'm having that same problem where it's not lifting the pen up before it moves. That's fine. I'll just say pen up before you move and pen down after you move and turn. So now when the Scratch Cat goes back to the center, it'll turn a little bit and start making new steps. And now we kind of want to see what this looks like a little faster. So I'm actually going to take these weights out entirely. It's a little tricky when you move something in Scratch because everything below it comes with it. So you have to move that weight out and move the turn back in. Move the weight out, move the move back in. Everything I'm doing, I'm just taking everything that I'm clicking on and below. And I can put these weights over here, or I can put them back in the library and they'll just go away. So now the cat is moving really fast. That's pretty fun. It's sort of making a cool spiral. There's something else fun that I can add right now in the pen section, which is I can change the pen color every time I go. So I'm going to add a little change pen color right after it puts the pen down and it's ready to draw. And now you can see the pen color is changing a little bit each time, getting a little greener, getting a little bluer, a little purple, back to red. One cool thing to observe is that it's turning 15 degrees, and when it makes a full circle, it's sort of lining exactly back up with where it was before, because 15 degrees divides very evenly into 360. If that feels above your grade level, don't worry about it. You'll get to it eventually. So my idea is just to change the number of degrees in here. So let's experiment. Instead of 15 degrees, let's try 20 degrees. And that's making it turn just a little more each time. What if we try something like 100 degrees? So now the Scratch Cat is turning much more in between each line it's drawing. And the colors are starting to look pretty cool. There's another really neat thing that you can play with, which is the pen shade. So I'm going to stick a change pen shade in here too. That just changes the lightness and darkness. So one thing that I'm observing now is that I don't really need the cat anymore. So I'm going to stop the program for a sec. I'm going to go into the costume section, and I'm going to just get rid of the cat image and just have this object be blank, because I really care about the line, not really the cat. So up here, if you move the mouse over one of these costumes for the cat, there's an X. I'm going to get rid of that cat. Now it won't show me an X because there's only one left. It needs one costume. But if I just go up to this paintbrush, I can make a new blank costume and then delete this cat. So now, if I click the green flag, it starts drawing this. Now, you might remember when we looked at the spiral before, we sort of had more of a swirling effect. There was curving as it drew, and the little lines are kind of dancing up. So let's talk about how to make that. The first thing to realize is that we're making these lines, zigzag, but we're finishing up a line before we move to the next one. So let's change it so that we can actually be starting a line and then starting another line before this one's even finished, and then starting another line. That's going to give us that kind of neat swirling effect. So to do that, we're going to have to do something that's just a little advanced in Scratch. We're going to go to the control section, and we need two blocks that are at the bottom of this. Create clone of myself, and when I start as clone. So this is something so cool that Scratch can do. Any sprite, like this object here, can make a copy of itself. You're not going to see that copy show up down here in the sprites list, but Scratch is going to know that it's there. And it can make a copy of itself, and it can make many copies of itself. And each copy can be doing its own thing. So we're actually going to say, hey, when I start as a clone, I'm going to move this create clone out of the way for a sec. When I start as a clone, when I'm sort of born, then I'm going to do all this stuff like move 10 steps, turn, move 10 steps, turn, and do that 10 times. So I'm going to take this stuff from inside the forever loop. I'm going to move it out. Now, some of this stuff is about sort of what to do in between each of these lines, like this turning and going back to the center. So all that stuff I'm going to keep. I'm going to leave that in the forever. But all this stuff, which is about the moving 10 times, I'm going to put that in the when I start as a clone. So when I'm born as a clone, I'm going to start going forward 10, right 10, forward 10, left 10, forward 10, right 10, forward 10, left 10, because that's the code in the when I start as a clone section. And I'm going to do that 10 times. So if I click the green flag now, nothing happens. And see if you can figure out what I've forgotten to do. A clue is this create clone of myself is just kind of floating off here on its own. I'm doing this forever, but I'm not actually telling it to do any drawing. I'm not telling it to do this when I start as a clone. I'm just saying, keep turning, keep picking the pen up, putting it down. So I need to actually say create clone of myself in there. So I'm going to stick create clone of myself, and you see immediately it's starting to work over there. That's a little hard to see because it's going so fast. So what I'm going to do is slow it down just a little bit. I'm going to put a wait block just back in the beginning of this process of taking these steps. Let's click the green flag again and see if we can watch it happen. So the clones are being born and they're going outwards slowly. One thing to notice is we're turning now 100 degrees in here, but that's such an even number. I think we're lining back up with exactly where we were before. So if we put in a kind of like more awkward number, like 73, then when we click the green flag, I think we should see what's happening a little bit more clearly. Yeah, you see there's lots being born at the same time, just rotated a little bit from each other. And it's starting to be a really cool effect. Now, another thing that's going to help this be a little clearer is if we go to the pen section and we get the change pen size, or rather, sorry, the set pen size. Let's get the set pen size, and just at the beginning, let's set the pen size not to 1, a thickness of just 1 pixel. Let's set it thicker, like 5 or 10 or something like that. And if we click the green flag, then you see they're a little thicker. They're starting to be a little more interesting. Okay. Another thing is if you notice before this kind of example that I was showing at the beginning, it almost feels like they're little worms. They're kind of crawling up. Whereas what we've got feels more like lines that just appear. So the way to make it kind of snake along in more of a continuous way is instead of just saying move 10 steps over here, I'm going to take this stuff out and take the move 10 steps out. Instead of moving 10 steps, I'm going to move 1 step 10 times. So I'm still going to move 10 steps, but I'm going to go 10 little steps instead of going 1 big step of 10. And I'm going to do that to this move down here as well. Instead of moving 10 steps, move that so you can see it. Instead of moving 10 steps once, 10 times I'm going to move 1 step. And now I'm going to put these back in here. So I'm still moving forward 10 steps, just 10 little steps, then turning right, then moving forward 10 little steps, and then turning left. And I'm going to click the green flag, and you'll see it sort of grow in a steady way. Now it's going a little bit slow, so I'm going to take that weight back out. Don't need that weight anymore. It was just kind of helping us see the process a little more slowly. So now you see it's kind of snaking outwards in more of a continuous way, and you can start to see the real cool spiral effect happening. Pretty neat, huh? it's even neater if you change the pen color and the pen shade more slowly. So let's go here and just change the pen color by like 2 instead of by 10. So you see the whole thing like gets a little more red, a little more green. The shades are a little more distinct. And then it's fun to do things like change the pen shade just by a little bit here, and then maybe change the pen shade a tiny bit as we go outwards in the clone as well. So I'm going to change the pen shade by 1 here. And now you start to get these sort of neat things like as the shade goes outward, you see it gets a little darker or a little lighter. And you can start to play around with this. Maybe I'll change the pen shade by 1 here as well, and really just have the changes be a little more gradual. And the other really cool thing that you can play with is this degrees that you're turning. So 73 degrees is giving me this kind of slow turning spiral. What if I up it to like 87 degrees? Now it's turning the spiral in the other direction. So you start to get some really cool effects. What if I do 100 degrees? Remember, that was a very even number, so it gave me shapes that felt very consistent and didn't feel like they're spinning so much. But what if I even go just up 1 to like 101 degrees? Now all of a sudden, I've got my spiral back a little bit. It's just slightly feels like it's turning. You can feel that slight leftwards motion. You can start to do crazy numbers and try them. 207 degrees, what does that do? I'm keeping my numbers below 360 because 360 would be a complete circle. If I turned 360 degrees, let's see what that does. So each time it's turning all the way back to where it was before and just doing the same staircase, the same kind of one that we saw at the beginning. But if I even just go 1 less, 359 degrees, then every time it's turning a little bit and you start to get a spiral again. Now 359 degrees is just 1 degree away from 360 degrees. It's very close. So the spiral is very slow. It's almost like a painter's palette. Pretty cool, huh? Let's try 326 degrees. See what that does. Just trying numbers that seem fun. This is very fun. How about 247 degrees? I got sort of a spinning triangle kind of spiral. Okay, so you'll also notice that this spiral is ending, and we could make it go a little further. Can you think of what number here you could change to make the circle that it's making bigger? It's this one. Instead of just going 10 of these steps, what if we went 20 of these steps? And I'm going to click the green flag again, and we're expecting the circle to get bigger. I do this a lot in programming. Try something, remember what I'm expecting, and see if it happens. All right, so it's working. Now, you might notice something happening in our programs. Do you see it kind of stopping? It was doing this spiral, and then it stopped again. Here, I'll do it again. And I click the green flag. So at the beginning, it's making spirals. It's making new clones. They're going all over the place. They're beautiful. And at some point, it's going to kind of stop making new ones. Can you think of any reason that might be? One hint is around the edges. Do you see around the edges, there's these sort of lines just going on the edge? Almost like the clones are still there, which they are. The clones haven't gone anywhere. They're just sitting there waiting for something to do. And what we can do is if we go to the control section, we can delete this clone and say, when you're done doing your 20 steps, delete yourself. So then they shouldn't hang around forever at the edges, and we should see them disappear. So it stopped slightly while a few of them reached the edge, and now it keeps going. And I'm really liking this one a lot. Okay, let's play around with the numbers a tiny bit more. What if I do 217? And I like numbers that end in 7 because I know they won't divide very, very neatly. Okay, that's fun. It's kind of like a 5-point star that's rotating. Now, it does seem like it's pausing after it does a whole bunch of new clones. And what we can do about that is we can just stick a little thing in here. We can say, hey, clone, if you are, I'm getting if from the control section, if you're touching the edge, in the sensing section, you'll find touching. And we can put that in that if. So it's saying if you're touching the edge, I'm just clicking on this drop down button, this little black triangle, and picking edge. So this is saying if you're touching the edge, then delete yourself. And I want it to check this not just at the very end, but I actually want it to check it every time. Let's have it be the first thing it checks in its repeat loop. So every time it's doing its repeat loop, it's saying, hey, if you're touching the edge, then delete yourself. And then we can have it repeat a little more. We can say repeat 30 times, or actually, we don't even need a repeat number. We could switch out this repeat and get it forever and just say, keep going, keep making lines, but if you're touching the edge, then delete yourself. So let's see now if we click the green flag, if we feel like this works. I'm really liking this star-shaped spiral. So the first clones are reaching the edge, and they seem to be disappearing right away. The pen line is still there, but the clone itself doesn't seem to be waiting on the edge for very long. Okay, I'm going to play around with the pen color just one more time. I'm going to change the pen color a little less, just by like 1. And then I'm going to change the pen shade over here by more, like 5. And let's see what that does. I'm really into this. And what if we change the pen shade by 2 in here? And what if we turn some other number of degrees, like 61 degrees? I'm going to try. So these different combinations of colors and turning amounts give you these different feeling spirals. And I'm sure in your own experiments, you'll find lots of really neat combinations. Another thing that you can think about, again, is we set the pen size to 5, but there's nothing magic about 5. You can try 20, which makes kind of blobs that are still spiraling in a very different kind of pattern, a very different feel. It feels almost like an impressionist painting. And you can even change the pen size to something like 100. Almost seems like it's one blob that's spilling out. I love that. Or you can change it back to 1 and see how it feels. Almost feels like an ancient pattern that you'd find etched in stone. Something mysterious to me about these tiny little lines, or it feels like weaving, like an old patterned robe or a carpet. So you don't need a ton of code for this. You don't really need to be able to draw or anything. If you make these coding patterns, you're going to start to get some really cool things. And I would love to see what you've made. Make sure that you name your spiral. I'm going to call this Ben's Crazy Spiral. And make sure you save it. You can click Save Now up here, or you can click in the File menu in Scratch and click Save Now. And then anytime you want to go back to it, anywhere in Scratch you just click on this folder. It'll take you to your things. And then you can go back to Ben's Crazy Spiral. Oh, I named it wrong, but luckily Scratch always lets you change things. In programming, you're never stuck with what you've got. You can always change it and improve it when you have a bug like a misspelling. Ben's Crazy Spiral. So that spiral is happening. And here in the instructions, I can say, just hit the green flag. And in the notes and credits, I can say, by Ben Wheeler, inspired by. And if there's another Scratch program that inspired you, it's very polite to link to it here. And there's lots of spirals that I've seen on Scratch. So I'm going to go on Scratch. And I'm going to search for spiral. I don't know which one I saw. I think it might have been this geometric spiral that I saw a while ago. So I'm going to copy this URL and this girls can program. And I'm going to say inspired by this one, by girls can program, which is awesome. I wonder what girls can program is. It sounds great. So people really appreciate you giving credit to people who inspired you on Scratch, and I can't wait to see what you make.